Yeah, there we go. Welcome back to the Movie Well Marathon. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Matt.
Heck yeah. And we're working our way
Woo.
through our 80s marathon. I don't know which number
Mm-hmm.
we're on,
Mm-hmm.
but we're working our way through it. It's been fun. We're on Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Came out June 11th,
Mm-hmm.
1986, directed by John Hughes, starring, of course, Matthew Broderick, Alan Ruck as Cameron, Mia Sara as Sloane, and then we've got Jeffrey Jones, fuck him, as Ed Rooney, and Jennifer Grey as Jeannie, and I guess Charlie Sheen is in there for a second. But those are like the ones that
Mm-hmm.
matter. So yeah, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. This is gonna be a fun one, I think.
Mm.
Because there's like one big debatable thing. I don't want to hold that till the end.
I'm not entirely
It's
sure what we're
whether or not
referencing.
Ferris Bueller is a good friend. I've had this debate
Ah,
with people many a time, and I
it's
like
an
to.
interesting
It
question.
is. I like to hold that till the end. And
Mm-hmm.
for the assume until that conversation that everything is sunshine and daisies for the
Okay.
for the as it is. How do we feel about Ferris Bueller's?
It's an incredibly charming and fun movie, in my opinion. Like we do have some moments every now and then, but like for the most part, it is just and like I feel like the opening is a perfect sort of like summary of the complicated charm of the movie because it opens on clearly a teenager, if not older, getting babied by a couple of his parents because he's sick and he's just like, I'm so sick, I can barely do anything. And you should hate him. You should. You don't. You're rooting for him. And that is kind of the pattern that continues throughout the entire film. It is like the movie, I think, makes a point to show that Ferris is a bit spoiled. Like the universe is on his side. But at the same time, even though it's incredibly unfair to the people around him, you don't really want that to change. You like Ferris and you enjoy the day off with him, even if there are some things that you would normally consider injustices happening or
Mm-hmm.
like things that could put others in, like get others in trouble and stuff like that. You're on his side the whole time somehow. Um, and it's a very fun ride if you allow yourself to just sort of like take it away. And it's a very interesting movie if you try to analyze it a little bit and be like, why do we support this when if I were in these people's shoes, I would hate this kid.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very interesting movie, I think.
I agree. I think it's incredibly charming. I have a lot of fun with it. I think it is properly funny.
Hmm.
I don't know, what the first movie is that does like fourth wall breaks. First thing I can think of
Hmm.
honestly is Laurel and Hardy from back in the day because one of them always looks at
Mm.
the camera anytime the other one does something really. Um, but the fourth wall breaks are great. It's very fun. Um,
Hmm.
I was trying to think about that a lot while watching this as well, while considering that debate as to whether or not he is a piece of shit. And I think the villain really helps to illustrate that
Hmm.
because when you
Agreed.
when you when you analyze and you think about it, he's not hurting anybody. We'll
Hmm.
get into that because the Cameron thing is debatable. Right now, Sunshine and Daisies. He's not hurting anyone. His
None of his
biggest
plans are
crime,
malicious by
right?
nature.
Yeah, and he's
Hmm.
and he's got parents that he's manipulating, but like, oh my god, he faked an illness to get out of school. Damn him to hell. Every single one of us have done
Right.
that. His parents aren't even portrayed as stupid. They're just
Hmm.
sweet. And they
Overly
and they
concerned.
trust him. Yeah, like
Hmm.
they trust him. But like his big crime, skipping school 9 days of this entire school year. I understand you may have a specific thing to say about this given
9 days
your
of the
current career.
semester is a different number
I
than 9 days from the school
Did he say
year.
semester? I'm sorry. Was it semester, not school year?
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah.
I will I will tweak my perspective. Do I care? I really don't. So I understand that in your particular line of work, you may have more to say about that. Um, However, what I was looking for this time, especially, I was trying to clock, is does anyone reference that he's struggling with it? Apparently, he's not,
Mm.
and they don't illustrate either that he's like a cheater. So
Hmm. It's true.
I don't care if he's skipping school. You know, like
So,
I
yeah.
it
I mean, he
just
does several like minorly illegal things throughout the film, but the closest he comes to full on like grade fraud is when he changes his records of attendance in
yeah.
the office
I
through his
guess there is
computer.
that, and
Hmm. Hmm.
I think that's fits though, so I still don't really care. Um, yeah. So, but he is definitely manipulative for sure.
Hmm.
But I do fully get caught up in the charm of what he's skipping school. Like I
Hmm.
really like that everything that they go do is so like basic. They even
Hmm.
glorify at one moment an art museum. There's
Yeah.
little to no dialogue. The music is lovely, and we even spend movie time just looking at the art. And we're
I love the
making
shot where they're in the line of like kindergarten or
kids.
grade
Yeah,
school kids.
yeah.
Yeah, because it's, I think that's when it kind of clicked for me. Like, the reason we like Ferris is even though he is essentially a trickster god, um,
Yeah.
he's he's also a champion of human needs.
Hmm.
Like he's like the weather is nice, so I have to go be outside, which is a human thing. I need to be free of structures that tell me what to do with my day. I need agency to make my own choices. I need friendship and companionship on this journey with me, including a romantic situation. I need food that I enjoy eating. I need art to enjoy. I need
Yes.
culture and dancing.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
he runs away from
Connection.
school and he fully jumps headfirst into all the joys of the human experience as well as all the needs of a human life. So there's this element, like essentially the film, which we'll get to, especially when we talk about Rooney. It's basically resisting this slow trod towards becoming a cog in the machine. And instead of doing anything crazy, it's just, what if we just lived the way we wanted to?
Yes.
And that's what makes it so fun, because it's just someone doing what they want to do and slipping past any barriers that would normally stop them from doing that.
That's why. Yeah, I think that's
Really fun.
it's really fun, and I think it gets more charming points than it does hooligan points because I think
Hmm.
it matters that other than some of the car stuff right now, Sunshine and Daisies, they don't do anything that's like illegal. They're not like, oh, let's get shots. Let's try beer. Like they don't do anything like that. They're going to baseball
Well,
games. They're
they do
going.
impersonate the cops.
Okay, look. Okay, sure. I guess there's that. But like, I'm thinking movies similar to this, like
Hmm.
other than him like getting on the parade float, which they illustrate is not an issue. They don't break
Hmm.
into anything. They don't
Hmm.
steal anything. They
They're
don't.
not being delinquent,
No, they're just
really.
out there living
Hmm.
life, and I get really into it. I find because of where I was towards the end of high school, early college, I find this movie really inspiring because it glorifies just
Hmm.
regular and living that
Yeah.
day to the fullest in like a believable way, and how
Hmm.
fun that could just
Hmm.
be to do that, and I really appreciate it. Um, and if when you get into the movie world as well, it's amplified by how they illustrate that the school is just mind-numbingly. Both the professors
Hmm.
suck. They're slow. They're uninterested. They have no passion. The guy teaching gym is driving a little jeep. He's not even running with the students. And yeah, Principal Rooney, he's so invested. Or Dean Rooney, he is so invested in busting this one specific kid to the point of taking physical injury. Like it's excessive, it's too much, and he has fully lost himself to this weird power tripping position that he himself in. And it's definitely the antithesis of Ferris. That's not an accident or that. But I do think it helps to illustrate that lost my point. Kind of got all over. Rooney, I think, little segue kind of helps to
Sure.
illustrate that he is what Jeannie will become if she doesn't learn facts. And I like that we have both these
Mm,
things going on because it also shows,
I hadn't thought about it like that.
yeah, I mean, for sure that they're both obsessed with it, even though it really doesn't
Hmm.
affect either one of them. And what's funny is Rooney is so preoccupied with Ferris, he doesn't even notice that Jeannie's skipping all. And Jeannie doesn't think
Hmm.
about how she's all actively skipping everything, and she's just miserable. She's also still at school.
I
Like,
mean, I think she does think about the skipping bit because she goes and then she gets fed up to a point. And then there's even a moment of her acknowledging that she's skipping with the gym class and she's outside it, right? Like I think they do kind of present that Jeannie did have a bit of like a choice to make there,
right, but
but she
why is
chooses
she?
to break it.
He's skipping
Yeah.
though to bust Ferris. He's Candace
Yeah.
before Candace, and
Absolutely.
yeah, I like her little arc that she. It's a little quick, but I think it's cool to
Hmm.
her learning.
Well, and this point doesn't have as much strength until after we talk about Rooney and what he stands for, kind of within the framework of the story and the theme that's being put here. But I do think it is really funny that obsession and irritation with Ferris drives our rule abiding or respecting or enforcing characters to break all of the rules and
Yeah,
behave in irrational and irregular ways, and it works out really, really poorly for them. Whereas Ferris just sort of like skips through the day when he's breaking all the rules. Um, it's very interesting. You know, like I just think about Rooney when he shows up to the house, for example. Like he should not be there at all,
and
and
we're getting into
he
harassment
faces
territory, dude. And then we
yeah.
go into
Like
full
if we're
blown
talking
breaking
about
and
acts
entering,
that
and
were illegal
uh-huh.
and are not okay, this one comes to the top of my list. He breaks into a student's house because he suspects that he's staying home from school and skipping. What were you gonna do with the proof, my
Right.
man? Like,
Like, oh, your ass is mine. Like, what are you gonna do? And also, again,
yeah,
your perspective may have to come into if the teachers don't care because he's passing the classes. What does it matter if he skipped 9 days? How is that gonna stop him from graduating?
this gets into some complicated in the sense that like you kind of have to just take my word for it unless you want to do all the studying. But it essentially boils down to if students are not present for 10% of the school year, which usually ends up being about 10 days a year, a little bit more sometimes, then they are chronically absent. And that is very strongly connected to other types of achievement problems. Now, it is entirely possible this is all about correlation, not about causation. Like, it's not necessarily true that students miss days and then fail because they missed the days. But I can say pretty confidently that it always hurts a student when they are frequently absent. Like a student could be brilliant, a student could be getting perfectly fine grades in class, but they will never be achieving at their potential when they're not present to receive the lessons. And that can depend a little bit, especially as a student gets older. But in general, like there's just no replacing the being present for the lesson, being able to think through the information, and then working on the information in a structured environment.
Now, from your professional opinion, in this universe, do you think Ferris is missing on anything? Slash, do
Well,
you think he should be held back?
this is a cartoonish example of
Right.
the system versus the individual.
Yeah.
So I don't think it is fair to evaluate this particular argument through the lens of this movie
So,
because school, in its best iteration, should be an enabler to this life of freedom and individuality. But school, as it is presented here and as it does end up being in a lot of places, is just a checkbox for a lot of people who are like, you have to be there. And that kind of gets us to the second half of why an attendance or why an administrator of a school would be bothered by attendance problems. Administrators of a school are held liable for the safety and security and location of the student when they like during the school hours if the student is supposed to be in the school building. Now, if the student voluntarily leaves, there's nothing the school administration is supposed to do about that, but it's it could potentially reflect negatively on the school for a student to be constantly absent and then going out on the town and causing problems. At the very least, parents will be like, why weren't you telling me the truth about what's going on? Even if the administrator did, like, he kind of doesn't, he doesn't stop at the beginning, which is when he calls and he's like, Ferris is not here. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to call in. And then he does like a little, he goes above and beyond, but in what is still, I would consider his job territory when he investigates that question, especially when his girlfriend also gets called out. Yeah. But go like leaving the building because you have a personal vendetta with a student's
Yeah.
absence and then going and breaking into their house to get proof that they are not actually sick is so far beyond the bounds of what administrators should be concerned about that we now get into this cannot be a representation of the genuine system. This is a single individual who is on a rampage. Like,
there is also, it's interesting because everything you said stands. Absolutely. To an extent, even in this world. It's only slightly, I think, weakened by the fact that he's clearly smart. The school loves him. The groups love him. Teachers don't seem to have an issue. And all the guys down at the station know him and like him. So he's not even like a hooligan causing a ruckus. But there's no way that Cameron hasn't missed a similar number of days. Because he's always sick. And Rooney doesn't care about him at all. So it's just, he's just selected Ferris. And
no, you're absolutely right. Rooney, the character, absolutely has an obsession with Ferris because probably of some level of jealousy. Like, if we really
Ferris
get down
has
to
what
it.
he'll never have, which is charm.
Exactly. Charm and freedom.
Yeah.
You know, like,
good.
Or the very least, power to flout the system, you know?
I can't. I do wonder a little bit. Sloane knows she's getting called out when she sees the nurse. But it makes me wonder, how many times have your grandmothers died?
I know.
How many times have they done this? Like, they cannot have done this more than twice.
The scenes where she was like acting bereaved were amazing because the actress is doing like 2 levels of awesome here. She's playing, I'm a teenage girl who's about to con her way out of school. And she's also playing a teenage girl playing, my grandmother died and I'm so sad about it.
Yeah.
But also, like, I'm on the way to see my boyfriend. You know, so like there's a very funny melodrama to those scenes and her performance, which is exactly what it's supposed to be. Also, shout out of positivity for Rooney. That poem recitation was perfect for the moment. Obviously, it was awkward and weird because it's a teenager, but it was the exact, like, the content of that poem was a great fit for that moment.
He's well read, but he's still a dick.
Yeah.
That's so funny
Absolutely.
that you caught that, though. That's fantastic.
No, I think where, if anything in this film, what tends to bother me in terms of maybe moral issues I have with its message is that I think it does get a little close to arguing populism is better than intellectualism. And I get a little worried about that messaging in a world that will eat that up without any nuance.
Sure.
I think what the film is trying to do is talk about how systems will tie you down and strip you of your agency and your individuality. And the way to live your life happy is to be fully yourself and to do what you want to do.
Confidence.
And I don't necessarily disagree. Yeah, confidence and kindness to others. Ferris is very nice to everybody. So there's a lot about this that I think is a very good and interesting and sort of like revolutionary message for the world that we live in. I worry that people then push it to the extreme and say school is actually like this, or that we should just not have regulated learning hours or activities. I should be able to do whatever I want, whatever day I want, or I should be able to do whatever I want because the weather is nice. Like there's a
Mm-hmm.
level of responsibility that we still have to have
Mm.
if we want to be able to make the choices that we want to make.
Sure,
So
sure.
like I'm worried that essentially people will take this message without any of its nuances.
That's fair.
And
That's always the risk
yeah,
with art.
yeah.
Um,
And I'm not saying that the movie should necessarily change anything. It's just a level of like, I have seen how this movie becomes a platform for people to argue against their own education. And
Fair.
that hurts me a little bit.
Yeah, that's definitely. I think that's missing the nuance because you're right in that it could be misconstrued that populism are better than intellectualism. But I think the movie does illustrate very early and consistently that Ferris is where he is because he's smart. He's popular
Mm,
because he's smart.
mhm.
It's not like I was gonna say Daphne from Scooby Doo, but that's a bad example because she is smart. But there are characters in
Yeah.
movies who are popular just because they're popular. Because Claire, shall we say, from Breakfast Club, she's not the nerd.
Hmm.
Everyone kind of had a role there, even though the end of that movie aren't roles. But like, she is not popular because she's smart. Ferris is
Right.
clever. He's devious. He's Fox smart, but he is smart.
Hmm.
He's got the tech stuff going. He's got the soundboard stuff going. He can talk his way out of things. Like you said, he's a trickster god. You can't be a trickster god without being
Hmm.
smart. Um,
Hmm.
so I do think, and I think again, the museum scene really helps to
It does.
illustrate that what he
Yeah.
values is also not just living and culture and experiences, but he values this little stuff. Like I honestly wish he was throwing around more casual facts where he's like, this is the tallest building in the world. Like he knows all these little
Hmm.
things. I would appreciate that. Um,
Hmm.
my where I where Ferris makes me start feeling like Cameron and ignoring the car thing for now is the restaurant. I was just like,
Mm.
no, I don't want to do this. This is too much because that that part though, even though we're breaking the fourth wall and all that, you have no idea if Abe Froman is not gonna show
It's gonna
up.
walk in.
Like
Yeah.
you played this, like you can only fake it till you make it for so long, dude. Like what if Abe Froman shows up? That's terrifying.
Hmm.
My anxiety could never. I I couldn't do that. I just couldn't.
You
That's
need a day with Ferris.
no, not with that. That's too much. But everything else I find very exciting.
Hmm.
It's interesting what it says as well because again, in a lesser movie, if you wanted to portray them as hooligans and wanted to for some reason give Ed Rooney an edge, they don't even dine and dash. Like they're
Hmm.
paying for everything. They didn't sneak into the ball game. Like there's
Hmm.
there's a I can't think of it right off top, but there's definitely a movie. It's almost in my head. There's like a romance where they cheekily sneak into things, and it's you ignore it because it's charming, but like they are like bumming free rides and they're sneaking their
Uh,
way into stuff. I can't
I can't think
name
of
it.
that.
I know it exists. Definitely something there, but they don't portray it here. Like everything seems to be
Hmm.
above board, other than the fact that he skips school.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm. Well, and I think they're actually very intentional about the fact that the things that he does that are like schemes are very specifically because there is a rule or restriction that would keep him from doing what he wanted. And so he finds a way to get out of being responsible for that rule. He fakes being sick so he doesn't have to go to school, right? He's using the system against itself. Um, and that I think we really see at the restaurant quite a bit. He doesn't have a reservation, but he wants to eat good food and he knows he's not going to get in without a reservation. So he just looks over and he's like, I'll take that one. And I don't know, there is no feeling necessarily happening there, unless of course Abe did actually show up and wanted his table.
right.
But there is a sort of like getting around the walls that were put up to prevent you from doing that element, you know. kind of like he's not taking money out of anybody's pocket, but he is absolutely jumping over their fences,
He's taking
literally and
someone's,
figuratively.
yeah, exactly. He's taking someone's spot. He's in someone else's space. I
Hmm.
do wonder if they could have added something like he sees or hears Abe Froman in line, and one of them
Hmm.
throws on a whole like, "Oh my god, you would not believe the size of the rat I saw in the bathroom," and like make them leave
Hmm.
or something like that. Or for fun, as soon as they leave, the real one comes in, and the weird Neil Patrick Harris lookalike gets to play with that a little bit. Um, see, I mean, what else is there to say? Yeah, it's not that complicated, and
It's
I
not.
am avoiding the.
Oh, we haven't mentioned it. Soundtrack is
Oh,
awesome.
it's
I mean,
very
that's kind of a
fun.
given, but it's so good. And I feel like I don't know how early films started using pop culture music
Hmm.
for rhetorical value in a scene,
Right.
but this was absolutely doing that. And
Hmm.
I can't think of anything earlier that does something like that. Like, there are plenty of movies that use songs that thematically fit, like they use popular songs that thematically fit the movie. I mean, Top Gun has that. All
Hmm.
the 80s movies have a
Hmm.
lot of that. But they were using this particular kind of music to make jokes in the scene of the film. And I don't know if that's happened before.
Um,
Anyway, so the
it,
song usage is very
it's
clever
so
and
great, and they
interesting.
used the Star Wars theme as well, which is funny because Star
Hmm.
Wars was new at this point. Oh wow, it's 10 years
That's
old,
true.
give or take, but like still, it's
And I'm sure that music had a big cultural impact. They
oh, of
use cultural
course.
elements in this film. So, yeah. Yeah.
Let me think real quick of just really anything. I love that the two subplots come together, and Jeannie doesn't
Hmm.
explicitly learn from Rooney, but we as the audience get to see those two perspectives collide, and then she comes around instead of because like they're both after him until they're not, and it's fun.
There's,
I like that the challenge at the end of the race is more for fun because
hmm
she's already grown,
yeah.
she's already left it, but like both like the way he scrunches his nose and the way she squints, like it's just for fun. And I do like
Hmm.
though, as an older sibling, that she's on the other side of the door for a long time. She
Hmm.
lets him sit in it for a second just to make him squirm, knowing that in the end he'll save the day. And I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think that's very
It's, it's a great moment because, like, it kind of feels like she's back on her Candace Flynn chase down Phineas and Ferb. Mom, look. But it turns out at the end that she's willing to cover for him, at least in the eyes of our symbolic system character. So it's a sweet sort of like sibling moment
Mhm.
at the same time that it is a growth moment for her. I don't know if we really want to get into this, but there absolutely is a very quiet suggestion that everybody essentially needs to get laid more in this film.
God, I cannot believe that's the point that you made.
It's
That's
hard to
so
ignore at a certain
that's
point.
so funny. I honestly, even though Ferris says as much about Cameron, I did not make that connection as like something that they need to. That is so fucking funny, and I have that on tape. I am so happy I have that. That's so fucking hilarious. But like, yeah, no, it's there. I see it because it's a level
Cameron can't.
of not being able
Yeah.
to
It.
relax and not a certain
Mhm,
thing about the confidence, being able to relax and
mhm.
being able to just live. There is an
And
interesting point
Jeannie
there.
has a turnaround after making out with a delinquent.
Uh-huh.
It's
That is
kind of out there.
so fucking funny. Oh my god. And like it's want to get into it, if you want to think about it more and more, Cameron's parents hate each other. They hate him.
Hmm.
Ferris has
Hmm.
a lovely family. His dad
Hmm.
is a really chill. He's comfortable saying I love you. Yeah, like he's a good.
Hmm.
His mom's fine.
It's
They
true.
seem to love each other. You know they're doing it. My God, look at where you've taken the episode.
Sorry,
That
it's
is so
there.
funny.
I think the reason I noticed it was, well, sure, the Cameron thing, but also like I was just going through like the lists of what a human needs to do to be happy, and that
Mm,
is there. And the movie handles it. I think, I mean, there's some teenage elements of it, especially when we're
yeah,
talking
for
about
sure.
Cameron. But for the most part, the movie manages to do it without being like lewd or
Yeah,
gross
you're yeah.
about it,
It went
you know?
over my head because of how kind of
Yeah.
it's not subtle because he says it, but it's really not the forefront. It comes across as just kind of teen banter. There's a
Hmm.
layer of that here. Oh, God, it is so funny because no, but it makes perfect sense. But it's so funny that you caught it. I mean, it isn't because you can see more of the narrative points than I do, but I'm the delinquent. Two of us. That is so funny.
Yeah.
Well, we were halfway through, and as we said, it's really not that complicated. There's a lot of charm,
Mm-mm.
lots of things to enjoy. The music's great. The way they frame a lot of the shots is great. Like the way the car leaves the
Yeah.
garage is really funny. Seeing
The
Ferris on the
way that they
TV when Bernie's in
mimic,
the arcade is
yeah,
funny.
that's
That's
hilarious.
so
They
good.
mimic other genres like filming conventions every now and then, like the horror one with the mom coming down the hallway
Yes, yes,
and
indeed.
the like investigator detective one when Rooney steps out the car and heads
Mm-hmm.
into I think the restaurant, like he comes out of the car and he like takes off his sunglasses. Maybe he puts them on.
Yeah.
There's sunglasses involved and there's
Uh-huh.
like, some
It's
sort of
dramatic.
jazz underneath. There's this really fun sort of use of the popular language in storytelling to communicate the different vibes throughout this. Honestly, it kind of feels like a Looney Tunes cartoon.
A
Like
little bit. Oh
it's
yeah. I mean, Ferris is
yeah,
Buzz for sure.
yeah.
And
And
yeah,
not only do we have that like trickster element, the pursuit element, we have the common references to pop culture that add to the scene or help tell the story. It feels a lot like a live action cartoon brought to a grounded, for the most part, level, you know?
yeah. I think that's the perfect way to describe this movie. Cartoon brought to
Hmm.
like um I guess this would be since we're halfway through. I don't know how long this part of the conversation will go, but I guess we can talk about now. Is Ferris a good friend?
It's tough to
Kind
answer
of
that
is
question.
because the idea of taking a car that's forbidden fits into this. It's
Mm.
wrong. We are breaking the rules, but that's a classic teenager thing to do. I think it's extended or elevated by how rare of a car this is. Um,
But then it is again complicated by what the car stands for symbolically in the story.
Exactly. That's where I get torn because my siblings have argued that Ferris is terrible. He's a manipulative piece of shit because of how he treats
Mm.
Cameron. And there is a certain element of that in the beginning for sure. But I think the movie also illustrates immediately that they are at least so good of friends that Ferris knows exactly what he's thinking. Like,
Hmm.
and because of the fourth wall breaking stuff, we are fully in Ferris's perspective. We fully know what he's doing, and he did part of this for Cameron. Granted,
Hmm.
there is the element of well, he didn't ask for it, and you're putting him out by doing it. I think it's then you could then add he didn't make Cameron skip. He was skipping anyway,
Hmm.
and instead of
Hmm.
sitting there wallowing, he took him on a beautiful adventure. And I think there's something to that. The car thing then gets because Ferris absolutely manipulates and forces Cameron into that. But then the writing of the movie, in the end, Cameron is the one kind of pushes it over the edge, no pun intended, slash
Hmm.
pun intended, because
Hmm.
Ferris was ready to crack it open and dial it back by hand. He had already thought of the next stage, and yeah, that'd be rough, but you can do it. And then I fully believe that Ferris was going to take the heat. I don't think that was
Hmm.
manipulation. I don't think
I
that
don't think so
was
either.
I think he was fully ready to do it because I think he does care about him to that extent. And the movie then writes that Cameron decides to take it. So with what the
Mhm.
movie is giving us, I don't think Ferris is a dick
Mhm.
beyond what it is to be a dick to your best friend. There's always a little bit of that.
Yeah,
There's always a little bit of that.
I think ultimately with what the film is trying to do, you can't say Ferris is a bad friend because all Ferris did was encourage freedom of choice and like agency, right? He's like,
Agency, very much.
yeah, and there's a particular complication with the car because one, a teenager who actually does that should get in trouble. You stole a highly valuable object, recklessly, well, somewhat recklessly used it, and then tried to cover it up and then destroyed it, right? There should be consequences for that in the real world. However, the car stands in for all the artificial values that the people in this world want to love instead of actually living. It sits in it's a car that's known for being fast that sits in a garage and never drives. Like, that is
I never thought about that. How it's
it
are
is
known for going
literally
fast.
not living up to its purpose. And we go and we like even the guys who should not be driving it
Yeah,
because it is not their car,
they are.
they are enjoying it
Uh
because
huh.
it's a car supposed to go fast and they're driving the car supposed to go fast. Like they
That's
are
a beautiful
using
thing.
it for its purpose. Yeah. So when we come back and we destroy the car, that's when we get into, did Cameron really want this or not? Right? Because it definitely feels manipulative. Like the whole thing he does to sort of like, he's like, yeah, we'll bring it back. We're not gonna use it all that much. We're not gonna drive it into town or whatever. And then he does. That's straight up lying.
Yeah.
Don't love it. Um, but once we start actually using the car to do what it's supposed to do, drive us around, take us places, have fun, because it's a fun car, it's supposed to be fun, Cameron starts to have a good time. It's not until they're going to face the consequences of having broken the rules that it gets to be trouble again. And he has to reckon with what his actions have cost him in the system. And then he has to decide that he would actually rather take the consequences than live by the rules all the time. Is essentially what it boils down to. Like it's a performance to try and pretend like
Yeah.
they didn't go out and have a good time or that they didn't break the car. And the car
There's
also kind of stands in for all the things that his dad loves instead of him. So
yeah.
there's also sort of like a
I was gonna
element
say
there.
that's an important element because what Cameron ends up taking the fall for is not the day. Like
That's true.
it
Hmm.
has in the end, it has nothing to do with that. And I think the only
Hmm.
reason, the only real reason that Cameron, like Cameron's choice makes sense is because they set up that conflict between him and his parents so early on
Hmm.
and consistently because his freak out, like he damages the car before he destroys it. He didn't have to
Hmm.
do that. That's his,
Hmm.
his pain, his trauma, whatever you want to say, coming out and him choosing to deal with it. And like that has nothing to do with the day, other than the day
Hmm.
has given him the strength or the perspective he needed.
Or at the
But
very least, he is going to have to face some kind of consequences. Does he try to shrivel up and fit the box again, or
right,
does he just embrace it,
yeah.
right? And there's a kind of crisis there, I think, that he deals with, and that results in a lashing out at the car because it's the object that is causing all the problems and also represents the problem between him and his parents too.
If if you don't get into the emotions behind it and you try to like look at both sides, the car being destroyed in the end, is that in any way Ferris's fault?
I don't think so.
Because like you could argue it was jacked up and driving backwards because of
Hmm.
their actions that day and whatnot. But Cameron kicks it over, over and over, and none of that was required. It wasn't. You could argue
See,
that the last one is an accident, quote unquote, but like that wasn't even an accident. He wasn't pushed to that
hmm,
emotional breaking point because of Ferris. Like
hmm.
it's it's one of those
There is
things.
there is an element here that Ferris took him out of his comfort zone, sure. But I'm of the mind that sometimes friends have to do that, and it doesn't always go well. It's not always pretty. Um, but I think that healthy friendships have growing pains like that, where because I think that you are a person worthy of friendship and connection, I am going to have to challenge you a little bit to become more of yourself. And that's a pretty line to walk because we don't want to necessarily be forcing anything on anybody, but at the same time, like as people, we should be challenging each other. Um, and with the car and everything, what I find most interesting is that Ferris immediately jumps in to try and take the blame. Look at all the things he has done throughout the day to basically ensure that he will not be found out. He could just say he's sick, skip school, and then leave his room and deal with the consequences later. But he intentionally makes it so that he will not get in trouble because that's a part of the fun for him, is making the system just unaware of the fact that he can do whatever he wants. Um, but the minute that his friend looks like they're going to have to deal with very real consequences, even though he was not directly responsible for this, he takes the blame because maybe because he feels a little bit of guilt about putting them in that emotional situation, maybe just because he feels like he can take it and his friend wouldn't necessarily be able to that well. But either way, that is the most self-sacrificing thing we see him do in the entire film. Every other thing that he does is at least in some way selfishly motivated.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that he does for someone else is try to take the blame for that car situation. And that I think tells us more about their relationship than any of the other moments in the film because it looks like Ferris is like, I'm not going to get him in trouble because he's already genuinely sick. I mean, he's skipping, but he feels like he's sick. And I am just giving him a day out on the town to make him feel better. And there's nothing in that should get him in trouble. But the minute that he does get in trouble, I'm going to make that my problem and not his. And of course, Cameron has grown enough that he actually decides that he would rather pick that fight than avoid it. But that was a very telling moment for me because that means that he cares more about Cameron than he does about his game, which means that he cares about Cameron more than just the manipulation or whatever he's doing, right? Like he chooses to protect that person over all the other stuff that he's been doing. It's a smart moment, I
Yeah,
think.
I mean, I like it a lot, but I can see why it is a debatable moment
Sure.
because
Hmm.
of other stuff that goes on. Um, yeah, I've
I mean, there is an
always
element of he just continues to enjoy his day while Cameron's having a breakdown.
for sure. Well,
I do think there's also kind of a suggestion that that happens. Like Cameron has
yeah.
breakdowns and they
Well,
just keep
there is
going.
that, but like Cameron's about to have an absolutely awful day, and
Hmm.
Ferris is gonna go, yeah, like you said. But again, with how the movie lays it all out, it's something that needs to happen on Cameron's end.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I have always
Well, and what's
wondered like
most
what that
interesting
conversation is.
is, yeah, true. But like at any point, he could have just said, "Stop. I'll just fess up to what we did." All he has to do is be like, "The odometer isn't going down." Well, I guess I'll just tell the truth. Or at least I'll say that I used the car, right? The car is actually still in pristine condition when they return it,
I was
for the
gonna.
most part.
I thought you meant like in the end. It
Mhm.
was like, ugh.
No, when
No,
they
yeah,
return it.
you're absolutely
Like
right. There's nothing wrong with it other than
they
the mileage.
they should not have taken the car,
No,
absolutely not.
I
But
am
they
of that mind
have,
100%.
and they were fairly responsible with it. And when they return it, the only thing worse is that some valet took advantage and drove it around, which would have happened if anyone had drove it around, right? The only reason that hadn't already happened is because of how overprotective the guy was of the car to begin with. So there's an element here of like the car narratively has to be destroyed in some way, or at the very least, we have to have a moment where somebody owns up. The car has to be the evidence of the day because the car has proof that it happened. And the choice to destroy it, I think, comes from the narrative choice of like wanting Cameron to have a moment where he visibly and actively rejects the stuff that his parents seem to prioritize.
Yeah. I think it makes it powerful for sure, but I think there's always a layer to it that makes me understand the, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because even
Mm-hmm.
though all that's great and I agree and I think the Cameron moment is necessary, I think the destruction of it is Cameron's fault, like all of that. And I love your analysis of how like the car that's meant to go fast is being, it's living its best life as well. I
Mm-hmm.
would do everything Ferris did except for the restaurant and taking someone else's historical. I just couldn't do it. That has
Yeah.
bothered me as a child, teenager, as
Mm-hmm.
an adult. I can never fully get on board with it because they change the answering machine at both Cameron and Sloane's house. They go back to the house. It's not like they leave the
Mm-hmm.
school and go to the city. They go back. So like they had every opportunity to change cars and they don't. So that has always bothered me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no, they absolutely should have returned the car. What I'm going to argue is kind of like the school portrayal in this one. I do not think that we should take it at face value as a real action. I think we have to look at it through a literary symbolic lens in order to discuss it intentionally. We wouldn't take a mallet to our friends like we see in cartoons,
right.
you know. But we do kind of understand what's happening there, like they're having a conflict, right? So like there's a level of symbolism and cartoonishness to this film that we have to take with a grain of salt when we're talking about how we would actually apply the principles of this film to our life. I don't think Ferris Bueller is necessarily arguing that we should be stealing cars because that is objectively
Bad.
not a moral action.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Honestly, if even if I get into the spirit of it, you know, I
mhm.
cannot abide by the valet at all. You left
Really?
someone, well, because like if I were to do if I allowed myself to go, I would then find best possible garage I could find, and those keys
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't leave my pocket. Like
Mm-hmm.
that part is the I think the dumbest thing that Ferris does is to leave it in the hands of literally anybody else.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, he goes through life with a very like I'll deal with the consequences later kind of attitude, or at the very least, a sort of, what happens, happens, and I'll figure it out from there. But that's largely because the universe like works out in his favor. They could have just straight up stolen the car.
No, yeah, that's amazing. It wasn't being.
Yeah. So there's a lot to what he does that I would not condone Ferris Bueller if I knew him in real life. But when you put it all together and you put it in the context of the film and you tell the story that you tell, it ends up being a very charming sort of summary of a argument against the system that we find ourselves in. A reminder that you are human and you need to get outside of your enclosure and just have some free time and make some independent choices, kind of damn the consequences.
Yes.
So,
And I always felt bad that I did not acquire that kind of mentality in almost graduating. And
mhm.
in ways I was robbed. I wouldn't have been able to. My mom, if I wanted to skip school.
Mm,
So there was never the
yeah.
challenge. She allowed for mental
You
health
needed the
days.
rebellion.
Well, I never had the chance. If we needed a mental health day, she allowed it. So that's funny. I never got.
I think I had the opposite situation where I was put a lot of pressure on and I put more pressure on.
I mean, the idea of skipping school was fun. Then like acting on it, I don't think I. For one, I wasn't
I think
adventurous enough.
that was the sort of thing that my parents would have been like, that's okay in concept, but I'd really rather not do it.
Yeah.
And and then when the time my youngest sister came around, they didn't care.
I like to
Oh,
think
there.
as a parent, I would allow for the school, not semester. I don't know, 3 Ferris Bueller.
Mm,
Those three, like let's
hmm
not abuse it. I get it. I like something
hmm
kind of like that.
Well, and I think the key to that is if you're going to call them Ferris Bueller cards, you have to go do something on
Yeah,
that day. Like get out of your house and go
right.
to a museum or go to a park or, go see a movie or a show, like experience life. Don't just hide out in your house because I don't think that's a good reason to
I
skip,
would I would
your
allow a mental health
responsibilities.
day when necessary. 100%. 3 Ferris Bueller
hmm
days, and those don't take up sick days. I think
hmm
I think that could be
Mathematically, with the stats and everything, that actually does work out pretty well, so long as the student isn't struggling heavily with what they're
sure,
doing in class.
sure, 100%,
Mhm.
100%. Well, for me, it's a whale, and I fully recommend watch. This is a great one. It's a
Yeah.
classic. It's very fun. In some ways, it's timeless because the things they're doing haven't fully aged out yet. Baseball
Mhm.
game.
Mhm.
Well, the stock exchange does not look like that anymore. They're only there for years,
Mhm.
but everything else, going to
Yeah.
museums, going to sports games, going out and getting some nice, all that's still a thing, and that's so much fun.
Mhm. Yeah. No, it's actually one of my mom's favorite movies, and I only watched it a little while later, but this is definitely a whale for me as well, and I recommend it. It's I think it is surprisingly a challenging film. It makes us question what we've accepted to be necessary. And it manages to do that in the guise of a kid genuinely just having fun skipping school. So it's a good film. It's really good to watch.
I would almost put money on it. It's an inspired video because Cameron
Mm,
looks like Ferb, and Ferris is so resourceful and so silly. Like, I, it's
I,
not
I
Ferris doesn't invent this idea of spontaneous and confidence and creative, but there's also the
hmm
Candace element a little bit. I don't know. I
a little
wouldn't be
bit.
surprised if
There
Pavenmeyer thought
there's
of this
also
when coming up with the idea.
a bit of like Pinky and the Brain in Phineas and Ferb as well. Like,
True, very true.
but it's kind of like if those two had a kid, it might be
Yeah,
Phineas and Ferb, you know?
it's funny. I'm gonna look into that now.
hmm
But that's technically our time. I mean, I really don't have
That's
anything
our
else to add.
time.
This has just been fun. I've really enjoyed this one. This is one
I
of my
only have
favorite
one
80s
page
movies.
of the notes
Yeah.
on it, but that's not because I disliked it. It's just I feel like it's all kind of on the surface for the most part. Like
It's
it wants you to know what it's doing.
Yeah, and because it's one of those movies, like you said, it's kind of like a live action cartoon. You can't really get
hmm
into some of the quote unquote plot holes. Like Ed Rooney's car has 18 parking tickets after being there for maybe an hour. Like that's not something that would
Yeah.
happen. But like you're not. Ferris
Yeah.
is breaking the fourth wall. No, that's not one of those movies. You
hmm
can't get into
hmm
those heavy statistics. Uh,
hmm
Great
Yeah.
fun. What is next week?
Great question. I didn't have it memorized, I don't think.
I just always ask
But
you
I
because
can
I
figure it
guess
out.
I could easily. I
Yes,
don't.
this is true. I should get ready for it now that that's my job.
We're either on the
Um,
second to last or the last. I can't recall.
yeah, we've got a few more actually.
Oh,
Got
okay.
Dirty Dancing,
Oh,
Big, and Heathers.
nice.
hmm
None of those are as fun as already watched. Big kind of is.
Yeah,
I haven't seen Dirty Dancing, so
yeah. It's definitely more of a drama than what we've done so far. The rest of them have been kind of like, well, romantic drama, maybe, because there have been elements of drama in the others, but
well, we'll see. I'm excited.
we'll do.
Cool. Well, bye everybody.
Bye.